December 26, 1996. A brisk, clear morning in Boulder, Colorado. John Ramsey was up before dawn.
Well, I was shaving, I guess, in the bathroom.
And we have a back staircase from the bedroom areas. And I always come down that staircase, and I'm usually the first one down. And the note was lying across the run of one of the stair treads. And it was kind of dimly lit because it was very early in the morning. And I started to read it, and it was addressed to John.
A terrifying message scrawled across 3 pages.
It said, "We have your daughter."
I just heard Patsy scream. I could tell by her scream that something horrible was going on. I didn't know what.
I immediately ran back upstairs and pushed open her door, and she was not in her bed.
6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey was found beaten, bound, and strangled in the basement of her family home in Boulder, Colorado that same day back in 1996. And for 26 years, her murder has remained unsolved. Now, in an exclusive interview with the U.S. Sun, JonBenét's father has revealed a possible connection between the death of his daughter and an attack on another child just a few months later.
What I believed was that this person came into our home while we were gone, waited till we'd gone to sleep, and then went into JonBenét's room. In their situation, they got home, locked the doors, set the burglar alarm. And then, fortunately, thankfully, the mother heard a noise, and here's this guy dressed, in a ninja suit, I guess, over her daughter. And the alarm didn't go off. So he had to have been in the house before they came home and set the burglar alarm. And I think that's exactly the method of operation of this creature in our case. Well, when I first heard about it and the circumstances surrounding it, I thought it's could very well be the same guy. And in my mind, there was a huge connection in terms of how it was accomplished, the age of the 2 children, my daughter and this Amy. They both were in the same dance school. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, wait a minute, this is serious. We got to look at this as a possible connection. And the police chief, in all his brilliance, said, well, it's not the same case because the second little girl wasn't murdered. And that was like, unbelievable. These guys were, Trujillo, when he was put on this case as a homicide investigator, had previously been an auto theft investigator. What does he know about investigating the murder of a child? Well, it's shocking, absolutely shocking. Those guys should have been dismissed then, and they weren't terminated. He should have been out the door.
26 years. Fascinating interview. Let's bring in our guest. Still with me, private investigator Jason Jensen, and joining us now in New York City, senior reporter for the U.S. Sun, Luke Kenton, back with us. Great to see you, Luke. Luke, this is fascinating. This whole theory, was there any sort of follow-up when it came to this attack of this other young girl?
The attack that happened 9 months later, the father of the girl that was the victim in that kind of pleaded with police at the time to investigate the 2 cases as one. The idea that, he said this could be the same person that was responsible for JonBenét's death. And he said he was essentially laughed off by Boulder police at the time, who, to his understanding, were kind of fixated on the idea that it was either John or Patsy that had killed JonBenét and therefore wouldn't be responsible for the second incident. And he was very critical of Boulder Police's general handling of the case. Accusations of not properly getting the fingerprints in her room, for instance. And again, just kind of laughing off his own theories and concerns.
Now, we saw a short clip of the interview that you guys did. What other things does he get into, and how would you describe, his when he has to talk about this? Because obviously it's defined a big part of his life. That's how people know him, and now it's 26 years later.
Yeah, I think he said it in a letter to the governor that was sent last month, but for John, he's 79 now, and time's running out for him to get answers, he thinks. Patsy tragically passed away in 2006 from cancer. She died without knowing, what happened to her daughter, and I think he wants to kind of avoid the same thing. So he's really kind of being willing to talk about the case publicly now and to apply pressure on police to finally crack this case and use the evidence that they have, the DNA evidence, to make an arrest or to at least identify who was responsible.
Now, Jason Jensen, when I think about those two cases that the one John is referring to, it seems a big difference is the note. The note. It always comes back to that note, Jason. What are your thoughts about that?
Right. Well, given the fact that there was a note in one but a rape in the other, there are some distinctions. But the fact that the MO was accomplished the same, where there was lying in wait, wait for everyone to go to bed before you commit the crime. Being in the same neighborhood, there's a lot of similarities there that, given the fact that this is unsolved, both of them are unsolved, it makes sense to now look at it and see if there's some crossovers, see if there's some similarities. We do know that both of the victims, the victimology shows that they both went to West Dance. So is there other similarities that may reveal a common criminal here?
And you think about, this goes back 26 years. If it happened today, just like in our prior story, there'd be so much video footage that people would be reviewing and looking at, trying to figure out if there's anyone creeping around in the neighborhood during the day. Luke, how... For John Ramsey, at this point, right, how frustrated is he, and does he feel like there's any sense of urgency for anyone to ever attempt to solve this?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, he kind of thinks for his own sake that time's running out, but he's definitely frustrated, but I feel like because this has been going on for 26 years, he's not, furious and angry, but he just simply wants the case to be taken out of the Boulder Police's hands and looked at by another agency, whether that be the Denver Police Department, the FBI, or even the local sheriff's office. Just wants another fresh pair of eyes to look at it and to get in the weeds of what happened. And additionally, he's appealed to have some of the DNA evidence released to like a genealogy lab. We've seen immense success with that in the past, the Golden State Killer. We saw with the boy in the box case to help identify that boy earlier this month. He just wants the new technology applied to this case and to finally get those answers.
Yeah, it seems like an obvious place to go at this point, right? Extremely obvious. All right, Luke Kenton, U.S. Sun, is going to stay with us. Jason Jensen, private investigator. We're going to talk more here 26 years later, still unsolved, the murder of JonBenét Ramsey. Also, coming up next hour. In Savannah, Georgia, baby Quentin was reported missing by her mother on October 5th. After an extensive investigation, baby Quentin was found dead in a landfill. Now prosecutors have indicted her mother for murder, and we have the details of what prosecutors believe happened to this little angel.
Relive the trial of the year. Johnny Depp.
I did not touch Miss Heard.
Versus Amber Heard.
He is an abuser.
A Court TV special event.
High stakes, he said, she said.
Attorney interviews.
This was about her image.
All the evidence.
Audio and video recordings.
All the heart-pounding drama.
I will live with that for the rest of my life.
Depp versus Heard, the trial of the year, starting Monday morning at 9/8 Central on Court TV.
On New Year's Eve in their hometown, Atlanta, Georgia, the family buried JonBenét.
I think it's the worst thing a human being can experience is the loss of a child.
But things for John and Patsy were about to get even worse. Investigators had grown suspicious.
A lot of things didn't make sense. Why would they leave a ransom note with her body still in the house?
My first impression was that this guy wrote the Magna Carta.
You will withdraw $118,000 from your account.
If I were kidnapping this guy's daughter, I'd ask for $250,000, $500,000, $1 million. So the amount of money is just really odd to me.
The Ramseys thought so too.
What's that mean? We looked at Psalm 118. Was it a biblical reference? Where did this number come from?
When did it hit you that the $118,000 equated to your Christmas bonus?
It didn't initially, because that bonus had actually occurred a year earlier, in January of '96. But it was on every pay stub that I got.
Police asked the Ramseys for handwriting samples. John gave them 2 notepads.
These pads were pads that were kept by the telephone, and each John and Patsy had their own pads.
Detectives concluded the ransom note was written on pages torn out of Patsy's notepad.
Really, the strangest part of all of this, it always comes back to the note. Here's John and Patsy Ramsey back in 1997 talking about it.
The fact that it was put on your back stairs, a route that you frequently take, would indicate, I would think, that whoever it was familiar with your patterns.
Well, that's certainly our suspicion for several reasons. One, it's a fairly large house, and to know where JonBenét's bedroom was, and the room that we found her in is in a kind of a remote part of the basement. And I don't go in that room more than
a casual guest would not know where that room is. It's a back cellar kind of out of the way.
Again, it arouses suspicion, I would think, in the police's mind that this is someone who knew you.
Possibly.
If it is, I'll just be crushed if it is. I mean, I'm hoping it's somebody that we don't know, but they have some vendetta against the corporation or the parent company, and this was a way to, if it turns out to be someone that we have known and trusted in our home or has visited, I just don't know if I can take it.
Let's bring back in our guests, Jason Jensen, private investigator, and Luke Kenton, senior reporter, U.S. Sun. Luke, 2 things, right? The note and then where JonBenét is found. Both things are huge factors in all of this, and probably the reason many were looking at someone from inside that home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does always come back to the ransom note. Traditionally, ransom notes would be short and to the point. This one was very long, kind of scrawled out over 2.5 pages. Lots of bizarre phrases and terms used within it, and obviously it was alleged to be from a foreign faction. Very, very strange, but John said and reiterated what we just saw in that clip when I spoke to him, that he believes that whoever did this was familiar with their patterns, whether that be somebody that they knew or alternatively somebody that had been watching them and surveilling them for a long time. He said, as you saw in that clip, that traditionally, there's a normal staircase in that house. Why was it left at the back staircase? That's a question that still bothers him now. And he said, this might have been somebody that was invited into their home, or it could have been somebody that broke into their home. They were frequently away at one of their holiday homes, or seeing, family and friends out of state. And he traveled for work a lot as well. So he kind of theorized that maybe somebody broke into his home and kind of learned the layout of the house that way.
Jason Jensen, the thing that always bothered me about the ransom note is that if the person was going in, well, first of all, she wasn't kidnapped, right? Maybe that was the original intention and she died while the person was trying to kidnap her. I don't know if that's the situation. But if you're going to kidnap someone, maybe you write the note ahead of time or you come prepared, because it seems the paper came from within the house, because there were the two notebooks and it came from Patsy's notebook.
Right. All the signs indicate to me is that this was a prowler that made himself really comfortable in the home. Maybe was even in there for hours before this and devised this notion to kidnap the child after seeing one of John's pay stubs while rifling through their desk or something. So then this crazy idea was hinted to him by watching crazy movies that, here you go, he's going to kidnap this child, writes the note, leaves it on the stairs, and then can't get the child out of the basement. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's as possible as anything else, right? If you're comfortable, if you're there ahead of time, not breaking in the middle of the night, you kind of get comfortable, you're browsing around, maybe you see one of those pay stubs, that's where that number, that strange number, Luke, like what kidnapper says 118,000? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, bizarre. And John said it to me the other day. He said that it's still something that kind of puzzles him now. He says the most logical explanation is the fact that it was his bonus and somebody had likely seen one of his pay stubs. But yeah, 118,000, surely you'd ask for $1 million or more.
But I guess if you see the pay stub and that was a bonus that he had gotten, or that's what you presume, it's some extra money, that it'll be easier to get because he just got paid this big bonus. That money will be easy to get and we'll be off. Jason, the bottom line here, though, if there is any DNA that hasn't been tested, or there are, places that have DNA profiles that haven't been looked at, to me, that makes no sense at this point. You need to, it's got to be everywhere and anywhere to try to see if you can match any of this up.
Right. There's no reason to just sit there and wait forever and just let the killer die of old age. If you know that the technology is available now, test it now, because then there may be other techniques down the road that may be used if it fails at this stage.
And look, before we have to go, if people want to see, and I know they do, by the way, want to see the entire interview that you guys did, where do they find it?
So you'll find it on the USSun.com. We're doing a series of stories with John over the coming weeks, but we'll have the full interview up soon as well.
Fantastic. Lou Kenton joining us tonight from New York. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time and sharing the interview with us. Jason Jensen, great job as always. We'll see you guys really, really soon. Have a great weekend.